Jake is panicking. Never before had he encountered something so terrifying. His heart pounds fiercely, faster and harder than ever. He always believed himself calm, capable of handling anything his assignments threw at him. He was wrong, completely unaware of how bad things could truly get. The despair he feels in this moment is beyond description. The problem? No edible meat on the ship. He knew food wouldn't be luxurious and had braced himself for the same freeze-dried soy-based fare common on un vessels. But this was unimaginably worse. The cafeteria options? Herbivore and carnivore. Simple? Not quite. Cooking wasn't allowed. Heat management on spaceships made open flames impossible. Even more disturbing, carnivore didn't mean what Jake expected. When he asked, the answer was thrum. He didn't want to imagine what that could be, but intrusive thoughts conjured grotesque images, nearly costing him his last breakfast. Emergency rations were now his savior. Meant for real emergencies, Jake decided this qualified. Their next stop was a colony world, where he planned to restock. He quietly thanked his grandfather for teaching him to clean and smoke game, a skill he never thought he'd need. A voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Is something wrong?" Human Jake asked a crewmate resembling an owl, with extra limbs under their wings and talon-like hands. They wore a blue cloak, its insignia offering no clear rank. Hesitant, but desperate, Jake replied. Yes, actually, he began, silencing the entire room. All eyes were on him. The owl-like figure introduced themselves as Sita and pressed him to explain. Realizing too late they might be the captain, Jake stumbled over his words. Sita clarified the misunderstanding. The aliens assumed humans could eat raw plant and animal matter without issue. Embarrassed, Jake explained human dietary needs, knowing it would make him stand out. As he fumbled for words, he braced himself for the days ahead, relying on his emergency rations to survive. Jake was struggling. Faced with a different kind of menu, he hesitated, unsure of what to choose. "Would you happen to have a recommendation?" he asked, trying to mask his discomfort. Sati tilted her head. "Ah, I see. It's understandable you'd be unaccustomed to our supplies as a new species in the Union. My kind usually prefer the flurm mites. They're not as good as a proper egg, but the smell is familiar. Carnivorous species lean towards the thrum. It's more nutritious. For herbivores, the vine leaf is said to be sweet and the mixed grasses more filling," she explained, clearly satisfied with her practiced response. Jake cursed her kindness. If she were like his gruff Earth commanders, he could complain outright. But her thoughtfulness made him feel guilty for even considering it. "I see. I'll try the vine leaf," he replied. At least it wasn't the roach like thrum. Satan nodded and left. Jake stared at his plate of leaves, hoping it was like lettuce. It wasn't. The leaf tasted bitter, with a mushy yet chewy texture akin to wet paper towels. That decided it emergency rations it was. For the next month, Jake discreetly retrieved vine leaves only to recycle them in his room, subsisting instead on his rations of freeze-dried meals. Though bland and powdery, they were labeled optimistically as mashed potatoes or applesauce. The peanuts and granola bars saved his sanity, though he was certain the crew thought he was odd. In his free time, Jake prepared for their next stop. He sharpened knives, crafted tools from cafeteria sporks, and built storage crates from trays and napkins. Luckily, protocol granted him a private room for adjustment. It gave him space for his makeshift projects, though his tray hoarding likely puzzled the crew. Today, however, was significant. They'd arrived at LTR Prime, known to humanity as Alpha Centauri Prime before Union contact. When Earth detected advanced signals from the planet, it sparked diplomatic exchanges, leading to humanity's inclusion in the Union. Despite the milestone, humanity remained on the fringes of Union space. Earth lacked unique resources aside from raw materials and terraformable planets like Mars and Venus. As such, the Union designated Earth's system for humanity's use, requiring us to claim anything beyond it ourselves either by development or trade. FTL communication with the Union was also restricted, ostensibly for security reasons, though Jake suspected it was to censor anything controversial. In any case, humanity had yet to make its mark, and Jake, with his rations and improvised tools, was just trying to survive long enough to see what that might look like. Jake was cleaning up his thoughts, wondering if the Union spent their time removing offensive content before humans could connect to their network. But what did Jake know? He was just an engineer. Still, he managed to gather some information about LTR Prime by asking a data scientist on board. They handed him a detailed pamphlet filled with pages of data. Jake spent hours poring over it, preparing for his first hunt on an alien planet. The planet, named Devour, had an Earth-like atmosphere, diverse ecosystems, and a unique apex predator known as the lore-kill beast. From the data, Jake learned it resembled a mix of a bear, lion, and hippo, huge, aggressive, and capable of consuming nearly anything. However, the beast was weaker than its Earth counterparts due to the planet's lower gravity, making it a calorie-rich but less muscular target. A single catch could provide him months of food. Jake also identified edible plants like dried fruits and grains, which he could possibly collect from local farms. Time, however, was a major constraint. The stop would last just a handful of Earth days a week in Elor time. This left Jake only a day or two to find, kill, and prepare the beast into smoked rations. The report was detailed about smaller animals and plants, but oddly sparse about hunting the kill beast. Jake noted its traits dangerous yet generic, a massive predator built like a wall of meat. He steeled himself for the challenge, knowing this hunt was his best shot at stocking up for the long journey ahead. As the ship approached Elor, Jake prepared meticulously. He scrubbed himself clean, hoping to mask his scent, and fashioned a hunting outfit using fatigues and towels to trap sweat. He planned to use local plants with strong smells as additional camouflage. Standing near the loading ramp, Jake waited with other crewmates. They eyed him curiously, whispering about his odd equipment. One joked, "Hey, human, you don't need a spacesuit, the atmosphere's fine." Jake ignored them, focused on his mission. Captain Seta approached him informally, her tone tinged with concern. "Engineer Jake, may I ask why you've been hoarding trays? It was brought to my attention only minutes ago." Jake feigned nonchalance. "Human tradition. We hunt in every new environment. Don't worry, I'll be back before the ship departs." Seta seemed hesitant but accepted his explanation. She reminded him to keep his health monitor on and carry a communicator. Jake nodded, ready to begin as the ramp lowered. Klex, one of the crew, had been observing Jake throughout the journey. He noticed the human never ate the vine leaf meals it took to its quarters. Initially, Klex suspected the trays were being consumed, but that theory dissolved when Jake appeared at the ramp in makeshift hunting gear, carrying crates built from trays and utensils. Jake also carried his weapon and custom tools, which Klex couldn't understand. Concerned, Klex reported this to Seta, who seemed reluctant to press the issue. Was the human so fearsome that even the captain avoided confrontation? Or was there something deeper Klex didn't know? Either way, he resolved to uncover the truth. Klex was determined to figure out what Jake was hiding. Quietly, he followed the human's trail, relying on his species' sharp sense of smell to track Jake without entering his line of sight. His flat nose hovered near the ground, picking up the human's scent from every step. Usually, Klex's abilities were honed for finding buried roots or fungi, but years of training had made him capable of much more. Each scent was unique, and Jake's was well memorized. Jake seemed to be heading to the colony's hydroponics area. It was clear now he wasn't eating the vine leaf meals, and he certainly wasn't consuming the trays. Was he looking for food? If so, why hadn't he informed the captain? Klex hurried to catch up, but by the time he arrived, Jake was already talking with one of the colonists. "That's fine. They're meant to be eaten anyway," Jake said. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. Can I take some for the road?" Klex peeked through the doorway and saw rows of fruiting plants. Could Jake's diet be entirely plant-based? Was the information on humans being omnivores wrong? Or was this unique to Jake, an allergy or some other issue? Klex made a mental note to inform the captain but decided to wait. Jake wasn't finished yet, and Klex wanted a full picture before reporting. Meanwhile, Jake was aware someone or something was following him. Occasionally, he caught a rustle of leaves or a glimpse of movement, but never enough to catch them outright. He had no time to waste figuring it out. The fruits and nuts from hydroponics would keep him going for a while, but weren't nutritionally complete. If he didn't hunt soon, he'd risk a medical emergency that could force the ship back to Union space early, a nightmare scenario. It didn't take long to find a trail. The kill beast left clear signs, crushed rocks, broken trees, and wide but shallow footprints. It matched the data perfectly, a massive predator built for biting, not clawing, and currently in its hibernation season. Even so, Jake moved cautiously. An interrupted cycle could mean disaster. Then, disaster struck. "Stay away. Stay away," a voice shouted. Jake turned to see the very creature he'd been hunting, a massive beast looming over one of his crewmates. It resembled the data's description, a huge four-legged predator with purple fur, jaws like a hippo, and rows of shark-like teeth, each as sharp as a dagger. Its head alone looked like a biological woodchipper. Jake acted fast. He raised his rifle and fired several shots into the beast's side. The low gravity meant the creature was enormous but lighter than it appeared. The shots sent it stumbling into a nearby tree, which crumpled under the impact. Blood spurted from its wounds, more than Jake expected. The beast's high blood pressure likely caused the dramatic spray, and Jake regretted losing so much meat to the chaos. He reloaded quickly, ready for another salvo, but the kill beast didn't rise. The massive predator lay still, its dark blood staining the ground. The danger was over for now. Jake approached the massive creature cautiously, confirming it wasn't breathing and had no pulse. It had bled out. Jake was surprised and a little disappointed. This was supposed to be a kill beast, a so-called super predator, yet it had succumbed to just 5 shots. Apparently, predators back on Earth were made of tougher stuff. Turning to check on his follower, Jake found they had disappeared again. Whoever it was, they seemed more afraid of him than the beast. Klex's heart pounded wildly. He had been wrong, so incredibly wrong. He had underestimated the human when it wandered into kill beast territory. Klex had read the reports the kill beast was one of the deadliest predators ever discovered. It preyed on every other species on its planet, earning its classification as a super predator. Klex had considered warning Jake, but every time he got close, he felt an instinctive fear and kept his distance. At one point, Jake looked directly at him, but Klex wasn't sure if he had been noticed. The look in Jake's eyes was chilling cold, predatory. Klex realized Jake wasn't searching for a stalker, but for prey. When the kill beast attacked, Klex thought it was over for him. Instead, Jake turned with precision, fired his weapon 5 times, and killed the creature. It collapsed into a tree, crushing it under its massive weight. Klex had heard humans' projectile weapons were powerful, but witnessing it firsthand was terrifying. Despite the recoil, Jake fired with speed and accuracy, placing every shot perfectly. Klex silently thanked the stars that Jake's focus had been on the beast, and not on him. Humans, Klex realized, were far more dangerous than he'd imagined. Their strength, speed, and cold precision made them unparalleled predators. Klex hid as Jake approached the dead creature and began methodically preparing it. For 3 days, Klex watched as Jake drained, skinned, and smoked the kill beast. Jake preserved nearly every part, even stuffing the intestines with its flesh to make sausages. The process was horrifying, yet Klex couldn't look away. Eventually, Klex could take no more. Hungry and out of snacks, he decided to return to the ship and report to the captain. But just as he turned, Jake's voice called out, freezing him in place. "Going somewhere?" Jake asked, his tone casual. Klex's instincts locked him in place, fear paralyzing him as Jake approached, each footstep echoing like thunder in the forest. Jake placed a hand on his shoulder, startling Klex out of his thoughts. "Hey, you okay?" "You look like you've seen a ghost," Jake said, his voice oddly warm. "Come by the fire. You look freezing." Klex hesitated but followed. Jake set him by the fire and returned to work, casually chewing on a piece of roasted kill beast meat. "Oh, sorry, want some?" "It's surprisingly good," Jake offered. Klex shook his head. "My people are herbivores," he said weakly. Jake nodded, handing him some nuts from the colony instead. As they sat, Jake asked for help with the meat, explaining it was going bad too quickly. Reluctantly, Klex agreed, fearing what might happen if he refused. Together, they packaged the meat into crates until Jake declared the work done. Returning to the ship, Klex carried half the crates while trying not to think about their contents. Jake, on the other hand, was satisfied. Between the crates of smoked kill beast and his other rations, he was set for 2 years. He did feel a bit guilty about the excessive salt used in the process, but had no other way to preserve the meat. The crew avoided Jake upon their return. Even after the captain allowed him access to cold storage, no one spoke to him unless necessary. Klex overheard whispers as Jake disembarked at the UN station, "Thank the stars, the super predator is gone."